house, and it's time to get started. Anyway, Dr. Evans, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull this. I'm going to pull this agenda up. If you would go ahead and start bringing greetings,
Okay.
and I will.
Well, welcome to week 8. It is hard to believe that we are over the hump now and starting on the downhill slide, as I like to think of it metaphorically. You guys have done some really good work. I have been very, very pleased with the results of your scores from your AAPTEL. Dr. Stedman, I have everybody scores except for one person, and all are 4s except for one 3.8. And a 3.8 is strong. Nothing to sneeze at there. So I have been very, very pleased with the results of the scores on the AAPTEL. And so you can see now, guys, we've done this long enough as we know what those evaluators are looking for. And so all we're trying to do when we ask you to do it over again, or, look back at this piece, is we're just striving for you to get that 4, because I know it makes you very proud of your work and it makes us very proud for you. So how did your class do, Dr. Stedman?
Everything I had from 3.6 to 4, and again, that's an A. That would be considered an A. So I had 3.6, 3.8, and 4s. So that's where my scores were. So I was very pleased with things as well.
And I felt like the competency folio, I saw some very strong work from your class. I have 3 people that I've got to email after this class. You've got to finish up a couple little things. You guys did a great job. And I think now that you've done your first round, you kind of see what is expected. One of the things that I'm really tough on, and I can't speak for Dr. Stedman, but I'll speak for myself. Remember, the competency folio is about you demonstrating school-wide leadership.
Exactly.
When you talk about examples of a conflict, maybe of a student in your classroom and a parent, that's showing leadership in the classroom. But what we're looking at is leadership school-wide. So always think about artifacts that show your leadership school-wide.
And we're going to kind of allude to some of that as we talk about the AAPTEL tonight too, Dr. Revis, as we move into that. But again, the competency folios, all of yours have successfully completed the competency folio for the first 12 competencies. So they have 9 left to do. And again, I was pleased with the results of that. Make sure that when your scores come in, the last thing you've got to do, that screenshot and put it in Blackboard. That's a final grade. That's an easy grade, but that lets us know that everything has been cleared, that you know what your score is, and then as far as our work with the AAPTEL is history. After that, Dr. Revis, before we move on, let's speak very briefly as they move forward with the AAPTEL. Let's talk about the Turnitin process. Both of us had to look at some things, and we're not accusing anybody of anything. It's just that it's things you need to be aware of, because we don't want it to be problems for you down the road. So if you would address that, and then I'll make a comment about it as well.
Sure. Well, when we look at your similarity reports, and that's what we look at, of course, we're looking for plagiarism or suspected plagiarism. In our Turnitin process, if you have documented something, it's not going to pick that up. Or if you have made a direct quote and documented, it's not going to pick that up. Or if you have synthesized some information and documented, it's not going to pick that up. It's picking up work of others and from sources that you have not documented. So, around this time, the first time that you've done a Turnitin in the program, you should not be any higher than 25 to 30% similarity. And I'll tell you where that comes from. On your template, you have a lot of that text at the beginning of each prompt, and that standard text that everybody who's been through Gardner Webb is going to have turned in to Turnitin. So you have a lot of that text that's why that it's acceptable to be 25 to 30%. But if you're over 30% now, the first time, that's a little high. And we start digging and we can go in and we can tell whether it's typically it's from Gardner Webb, other Gardner Webb students. Sometimes it could be from a former student of ours who has been in your school and has written a very similar school profile. And we can actually go in there and tell where the phrases or sentences or paragraphs, where the similarity is. So it's just a check for you. And, we're just trying to do everything we can do so that you're not going to get called on the carpet later on down the road. But if you were high, we've already had a conversation. And so moving forward, hopefully that's not going to be an issue for you.
Right. And Dr. Revis, just when you won't get the report, we get the report, it will actually tell us the semester that the student did the work. We can actually find out who the student was. We can actually pull up the actual student's paper. We have access to all that. And my point in saying that is that we've been doing this long enough. We know when it might be a school profile. We know when it could be demographic information. We know those kinds of things. But when it points out that there's too much similarity in narrative work and research work, then that puts some red flags. So just be careful. And again, it's human nature. There may be people that have gone through the program that says, I'll share what I've done with you. Well, that's okay if you want to look at what they've done, but just be careful in what you use from that, because it will come back to bite you if you're not careful. So just be very, very careful with that. And I'm not going to say any more about that. This is basically what things are going to look like tonight. I do want to say that thanks to one of you, we were able to, Jenna actually communicated with me, and she was looking ahead, and she found in weeks 8, 9, and 10 in our scheduling, there was some confusion in there. But anyway, she prompted me on that, or 9 and 10, and we were able to fix it. So what you see in Blackboard now is correct when you go to your weekly schedule, and then when you go to your week by week schedule, that it is correct in there. So we made the adjustments. And I'll tell you what happened. Last year, spring break is actually a week later than what it's ever been before for whatever reason. Well, when we were setting this up, we went back and we followed the calendar that we had, and we just knew that the weeks should be the same. Well, guess what? It didn't. And so, I didn't know that. And then Dr. Hamilton actually mentioned it, but we were so caught up in other things, it went over my head. And anyway, I appreciate Jenna bringing it to my attention last night. What you see now is correct. And Jenna, thank you for bringing it to my attention, because it would have caused a lot of confusion for students had that not been fixed. So I appreciate you bringing that to
Dr. Stedman, you're referring to the due dates? The due dates that
yes,
mixed up?
Yes,
yes. Okay, yeah.
Okay. But what you see now, Sasha, is correct in both Dr. Revis's class and my class. What you see is correct now. Okay. So unless we both didn't see something again, and both of us have looked at it, and but sometimes when you see this stuff, honestly, we read this stuff 100 times before we did, and then It just,
Mhm.
sometimes you just can't see it. But anyway, we don't mind you bringing something to our attention if it's something that you think that we need to know. So thank you for that. This is what it's going to look like tonight. I do want us to talk about the case study just very briefly, Dr. Revis. I've had some to come in and I've had to send them back because part of the directions were followed, but all the directions were not followed. So we just need to remind them again of what has to be done. And then we're going to delve into the AAPTEL. We're going to see how far we can go. We know we're going to get through task 1. We probably will get into task 2 because we want to show you the similarities of that. You're going to hear some of the same stuff again on Thursday night, but that won't hurt you. It's only going to help you. But and I will tell you, because of the change in the spring break schedule, it has been to your advantage. You are actually getting another whole week to work before any major work is due to us. So we made it work to your advantage. So we're going to give you lots of information so that while you are working, again, we want you to work smarter, not harder. So we're going to tell you how to do that. We're going to come back to these responsibilities and due dates. So I want to be specific with that, but I want to do that towards the end. Dr. Revis, if we could remind them again of what the requirements are for, just very briefly, for the case study that's due by the end of this week.
Okay, great. So what we're going to look for as far as the assignment that you turn in is we're going to look for your Zoom link, of course, and then we're going to look for that one-page document. And that one-page document has 2 parts: a reflective summary of both the case study and the case study Zoom session. The case study overview or summary is an overview of the relevant points of the case. Do not reiterate the case. We know what it is, but what are the main points that you felt were big points? And then this case study Zoom session is just your takeaways from that scholarly discussion that you had during the Zoom session. Now, remember, we're talking about a scholarly discussion, and when you are discussing things within your Zoom, we want you to back up your opinions, what you feel like should be happening through your research or through the work of the AAPTEL. So we're going to be listening to hear those kinds of terms that we've been working on and that kind of language that we've been using throughout the AAPTEL process. Anyway, that's what we're going to be looking for on the Zoom, and we're going to be wanting to see that you are actively engaged. As the Zoom master, we want to make sure that you're prepared, you have an agenda, you keep the session moving, you involve all participants equally, and that you don't let one person dominate the conversation. And I know that is difficult to do if you have a talker in your group. But those are the kinds of things, and we're looking at your leadership there. I know many of you are in jobs now as instructional coaches. Some of you are already school leaders, and you have been very accustomed to dealing with facilitating group sessions, be they face-to-face or Zoom. But for those of you who are not, this is a way that we can look at you as a leader among your peers. Shri has asked, should the reflection be an APA? Yes, if you cite any research, you always want to cite that correctly.
And some have done that, Dr. Revis. And when you go back to your case study directives, go back to the directives. What Dr. Revis is referring to with the narrative work, that's number 4. Remember, we don't want the answers to your questions. That was for you to use with your discussion with it, and that is not your narrative reflection. That was for you and for your discussion. So please make sure that you take care of that when you submit your work. Now we're going to get into the AAPTEL. We're going to really get into it. We surfaced it yesterday, but we're going to get into it. As you look at it, this is your title. The AAPTEL is an analysis and action plan for teacher empowerment and leadership. You're going to be looking at things a whole lot differently as you work with the AAPTEL. You know, when you work with the students, that's what you do as a teacher anyway. You know, student learning, now you are going to really take the role of an administrator. And remember, we told you at the beginning of the semester, we said that as a principal, as an administrator, your job is not to teach students, your job is to teach teachers. So you've got to move into that role, and you're going to start practicing that with your work with the AAPTEL as you look at teacher empowerment, teacher leadership, and what it looks like in your school, not from a teacher's perspective, but from an administrator's perspective. This is the template. Now you'll get a template this time for evidence 2. You'll get the helpful hints, but you will not get a completed example of what the AAPTEL looks like. You've got the APSL and you follow the same model, but you will not get a completed example. Remember, we told you that we would start gradually releasing some things. However, this would be your cover sheet. Remember, we told you with the APSL that if it's written in black, it stays. If it's yellow, that means you've got to write something. That's where it says narrative. And if it's red, that means that's information for you to consider as you're doing your narrative work. So you're going to do another header page, evidence 2 for the AAPTEL. And the only thing you're going to do on that page is your name here. Okay, you've already done your school profile. You can use your school profile again, or you will use your school profile again you'll use it every time until the very end. You can always edit it and you can update it if you want to. But if it's all good, you'll still use the same, the school profile throughout. And then it goes into your different tasks. And again, remember that if it's in black, remember it stays there. Yellow, you write something, and if it's red, those are helpful hints and suggestions. I'm going to come out of this, and then I want to go into I want us to actually use the helpful hints document. This is where we're going to start. And again, as we said, the AAPTEL is the second of 6 evidences that you're going to complete in this program. You'll use the same format as you did with the completion of the APSL. And I've just gone over this right here. The school profile is the same. I'm not going to repeat that. So let's get down to task 1, prompt 1. Dr. Revis?
Okay, so remember, guys, we talked a lot in the APSL, or at least I did. I emphasized this a lot. Whenever you are examining any facet within your school, what do you always start with? You start with the research and collecting data. So in this particular artifact evidence, we're starting with the research. So prompt 1, your first piece of research is building efficacy and empowerment among staff. And there are some authors here that I want to share with you that you need to make sure that you talk about. Here, you would want to talk about Bandura, Todd Whitaker, and perhaps John Hattie, Hattie. You're probably familiar with him. Those are some
and Linda Darling Hammond.
Right. Those are some references you could consider. Now, it's a lot of research in task 1, a lot of narrative writing. We'll go back. I think we will have time to go back and just open up the section in your Blackboard that has the AAPTEL resources.
We
Guys,
are.
there are loads of articles in there from which you can pull. If you don't find anything there that you wish to use, then you will need to go to the library and do a Bulldog 1 research, okay? Just like you did when you were writing your information about the PLCs and some of the other information. This is written narratively. And so you are going to have at least 3 references for each of these headings that we're going to go through. And so here's an example. And this is just written like a mini literature review for this particular topic, building efficacy and empowerment among staff. Not what you think, it's what the research says. Okay?
And a minimum of 3 references. Okay. And I like, Dr. Evans, I like the way they started out here. They said what teacher efficacy is. You know, what is efficacy? You start out with what it is.
Right. And I see already within one paragraph, she has 2 references, or this person, whoever it is, he or she. And so, you know, we're not wanting a dissertation on each of these topics, but the topic needs to be thoroughly examined.
This person did an excellent job with their research.
I see 4, 5, 6 references.
It goes on down. I
Yeah,
mean,
there's
it was
7.
thorough. It was thorough.
Your next heading is results-oriented professional development. An author here that we would expect to see would be Linda Darling Hammond.
Okay, I'm sorry I got ahead of you.
Okay, no, we would expect to see Linda Darling Hammond, and we would probably expect to see Gusky. He's done a lot of work about evaluating the effectiveness of professional development. And so again, at least three resources or references within this particular topic.
And
Notice
the examples that we've given them, Dr. Revis, these are great examples to look at and to model after.
And notice that this author even uses the textbook. That's quite all right for you to use your textbook as a resource. And there you see Linda Darling Hammond. If I don't see Linda Darling Hammond, I'm going to send it back. She's just too big of a researcher in this field for you not to pick up on her. All right, the next heading is recruitment, placement, and mentoring of staff. And so the authors that I think of here would be Whitaker, has done a lot of work on recruitment and placement of staff. What are some other authors there, Dr. Stedman? My mind is drawing a blank.
Recruitment, I can't either. But anyway, one of the things that you do when you find one, well, now Ingersoll, you'll see a lot about Ingersoll.
Yes, there you go.
But what you need to do is once you find a good solid author, then you look at the references on that, and that leads you to other authors and other resources with the same topics. So again, work smart, not harder. Use what is there, because when they did their research, they had to get it from somebody.
Now, really, this is almost like 3 different things. Recruitment, you'll need to have some information there, placement, and mentoring. Now, you don't have to have 3 references for each of those subtopics, but you need to make sure that you thoroughly discuss each of those 3 subtopics in your work.
And a reminder again, it's not what you think, it's what the research says.
And it's not what's going on in your school. There will be a place for that, but it's not here, okay? This is what research says. Your next heading, approaches to or for evaluation of school staff. I have had students struggle with this one a little bit, look at Marzano's work. He has done a lot of work. In fact, North Carolina has attached the research of the evaluation instrument to some of Marzano's work.
They have.
But there are others as well. This one looks at Baker et al., Moody. There's Marzano, you see. So, and don't forget, it doesn't have to be always a formal evaluation. We're looking for informal evaluation too.
Right.
When you do walkthroughs, that is a form of evaluation. It may be a formative evaluation, but it is a form of evaluation.
Or they may call it instructional rounds.
Correct.
So
And then we have teacher leadership and decision making. Again, these are like two little separate topics. They're very connected, but make sure you thoroughly discuss each. And it would be great to show the connectedness between the two. So in teacher leadership and decision making, I would expect, or we would expect, to see Todd Whitaker. And you can see right out of the gate. Yeah, there he is. I am not familiar with Weiker's Rick. I don't even know how to pronounce that name, but there are several authors from which you can choose, but one that we're definitely going to look for is going to be Whitaker there.
Okay.
Minimum of 3 references for each of those topics. So you know that in your reference section, you're going to have a total of 15.
At a minimum.
At a minimum. And we will send it back if we don't see these authors at least.
Okay. And let's look at task 2. Now that was the research. In task 1, prompt 2, you're going to do 2 things. And when it says create, that doesn't mean that you're going to just, sit down and start drawing or whatever. It's going to be based on what it's going to be valid and reliable. That means it's going to be supported. It could be supported by research. It's going to be supported for the fact that it has been proven to be useful and helpful and works. But you're going to do 2 things. You're going to have a checklist and you're going to have a survey. 2 things. Okay.
And in prompt 2, all you're going to do is identify these and talk about where they came from. You're not going to administer them now.
No, all you're doing is you're getting approval from us that what you've got, you will be able to use. Okay. You've got to get, Dr. Revis and I have to say, yes, this is good. It's a valid, reliable instrument. You can do this survey. You can use this checklist. We have to say yes to that. Okay, this is a survey example. Okay. And remember, you're doing 2 things. With the survey, you are looking at teacher leadership outside of the classroom. Let me say that again. With the survey, you are looking at teacher leadership outside of the classroom, in the school environment, the total organization. That's with the survey. With the instrument, you're looking at teacher empowerment and leadership in the classroom as a classroom teacher. So you're doing 2 things. You as the principal, when you look at the checklist, that's something you as an administrator would use when you go in to see if a teacher is doing what he or she is supposed to do, if they're on task, if they're doing what, and we'll talk more about what the specifics of that, but you're doing 2 things. You're doing a survey, you're doing a checklist. The survey is for teacher leadership and empowerment outside of the classroom. And the instrument looks at the teacher as a leader in the classroom working with his or her students. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say this example is actually the one that's in your template. This
Mhm.
comes from Todd Whitaker. Now, the only difference is this person has done like a table with a Likert scale of strongly agree, disagree, so on and so forth, which you would want to do actually for your survey, but they didn't make this up. This came off of Todd Whitaker's survey about teacher leadership and empowerment. You don't make them up, guys. You need to use this one.
And when you decide what you're going to use, you will support that with narrative work. You're going to tell us why it's valid, why it's reliable, where you got it from. You're going to support it. You're going to prove to us. You're not going to just put it up there and just Dr. Evans and I are going to say, "Oh, that looks good." You have to tell us why it's a valid and reliable instrument. Okay. Simone has raised her hand. Simone?
All right, Dr. Seven, just to make sure I'm correct, because I did take notes yesterday from Dr. Dale. If we have one from our district, we can use that. We can take out any sections that's not teacher leadership, correct? If
That
we
is
have one
correct.
already, we use.
And we're going to, and I'm going to talk more about that as we go down, but you're exactly right, Simone.
But Simone, if you use that one, that maybe a survey that your school district has used before, make sure you are surveying them within those 5 areas that you've done research in.
Perfect. We don't have a survey, but we have a checklist that we use. So I don't want to reinvent the wheel if it's already created, which makes sense.
And
Now,
we're going to get to that in a minute, and we're going to
yeah.
talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Okay. Okay. Now let's look at the survey. This is your survey. Now, again, remember, this is looking at teacher leadership and empowerment outside of the classroom. The survey will be to determine teacher perception of their empowerment as leaders in the school. Now, those of you that do the teacher working conditions survey, there's actually a section on that addresses all of this. And I'm going to show you that with the teacher working conditions survey. Those of you in South Carolina, I think you go through what used to be, well, it's Cognia now. And that is your evaluation system for accreditation purposes. There's information built into there that does some of this. I think the South Carolina, I think you call it the Eliod. Anyway, it's a part of the evaluation. In your comprehensive evaluation system, there are components that are built in there, just like North Carolina's teacher working conditions survey. However, you can actually use North Carolina's teacher working conditions survey to create yours, because that is a valid and reliable instrument. Okay, you can take excerpts from that, but the survey will be to determine teacher perception of teacher empowerment as leaders in the school. This can be done. You're not doing it yet, but when you do it, you'll be able to do that via SurveyMonkey. Surveys given to teachers in a meeting. However you decide to do it, but you must administer an approved survey by us, and then you've got to get permission from your principal to allow you to do that in the school. And again, this is where you can pull, that we've given you examples where you can pull that from, and I'm actually going to show you in just a few minutes from the teacher working conditions survey where you can get some of that information. And then Dr. Revis has already pointed out, we've got some already embedded in your template and your work of Todd Whitaker and others. What you're going to do, you're going to create the survey in task 1 and get it approved by us. And then when you get to task 2, which we haven't talked about yet, you're going to use it. So you're going to get something approved that you're actually going to use in step 2. Okay. Now, Dr. Revis, if you would talk about the checklist.
the checklist is about looking at teacher leadership within the classroom. The survey is about leadership beyond the classroom. The checklist is about leadership within the classroom. And here's where you are going to use, if your school has a walkthrough form or an instructional round form, or it could be from the district, this is what you're going to look for. And this is what you will use as you actually are going to be completing some walkthroughs. But let's look at an example. Is from in your AAPTEL template. Marzano's 9 high yield strategies would be an example there that you can use.
And Dr. Reynolds, when we go back to the app, the AAPTEL documents and resources, we'll show them where we've got those embedded in there in Blackboard already for them.
Okay, but if your school uses a walkthrough instrument, that's the one you want to use, because that walkthrough instrument should be uniquely tailored and designed to what your school is working on. And so that's what you want to use. And since it has been used before and over so much, it would be considered research-based, and you wouldn't have any validity or reliability concerns. If your school does not have a walkthrough form, that's when you fall back on Marzano's high yield strategies. And this example here is actually those high yield strategies, Marzano's high yield strategies.
And it's just simply when you walk through it, yes, no, and comments, and you move on. Usually a walkthrough is usually 10 to 15 minutes. That's
Right.
about what a walkthrough should look like. Okay.
Now you will want to complete, if at all possible. I'm assuming everybody's back face to face, and if that's an incorrect assumption, I'm sorry, but most of us are back face to face. So you would want to try to get at least, I like to see you get at least 5 walkthroughs under your belt. You can go on a walkthrough with your principal or an assistant principal or an instructional coach, or you can do them by yourself with permission of your principal. And so you're going to collect data in your walkthroughs based on the instrument, either that you have identified if your school doesn't have one, or using your school's walkthrough instrument.
But let me remind you again, you're not at that place to do the walkthroughs yet. All we're doing up to this point is approving a walkthrough instrument. You don't do anything other than provide us with what you want to use in task 1. Okay.
Tell us what you want to use and why you want to use it.
Right. Now, I'm going to come back to this, but I want to go. Here it is. Let's go back to Blackboard. I want to go to the AAPTEL. First of all, when you look at a week 8 and week 9, whatever, you may always look at there, because there's lots of good stuff that we've planted in there, and we've archived some of it because it was just good stuff over the last 3 or 4 years that you need to click on and look. But this is where I want you to really look at the AAPTEL template and materials section. Now, when I click on that, now I want you to remember, Dr. Revis mentioned, look at here. There's Marzano's 9 high yield instructional strategies. There's some information on that. Marzano's high yield strategies. There's some more Marzano, MTSS for teachers, instructional leadership teams. Okay, we're going to be talking more about next week, a needs assessment. There's some information in there about that. Okay. Remember, there were 5 topics that you've got to do research on. There were 5 of them. And we said a minimum of 3 references for each one. We have gone in here and we have embedded some good articles and good information to give you a start on it. Each one of these addresses one of those five, at least one of those five areas. So when you click on it, it's just some good stuff. You can use it and you can cite the reference, or you don't have to use it, but it's a good way to get started. Look at there, providing instructional leadership through classroom walkthroughs. That's good information for you. Instructional walkthrough tools, building RTI. North Carolina validity, reliability brief based on research, teacher working condition survey. There's information in there that will help you. These are some good videos that will help you. There's one on Robert Marzano that's embedded in there. Some good stuff. But this is where I want to touch you here for just a moment. This is the North Carolina Teacher Working Conditions Survey. Let me come over here. Okay, when you click on that, you can come over here to the right and you can, okay, I'm going to go to, let me go, I'll pick on, come on down. There's a lot of districts.
Mecklenburg County.
Okay, okay, okay. Well, we can do that. Well, let me do this because let me do this because I wanted to point out something that goes along with oh me. I'm looking for. Let me see. Well, I can't find it. Let me go back. I'll go to Mecklenburg County. Well, where is it?
It
Well,
might be under Charlotte, Mecklenburg.
Charlotte, Mecklenburg. That's probably what, there it is. Yeah, Charlotte, Mecklenburg. Okay, let's do that. Okay. And when I go to Charlotte, Mecklenburg, give me a school. We can go to any of them. Let's go to we'll go to Bain Elementary. We'll go
Okay.
to Bain Elementary, okay? Okay, it pulls it up. Now, when it pulls it up, you can scroll down and I want you to look. You see here, and it tells you how many took the teacher working, but you see where it says reports? Okay, when you click on the first one, because now when you get to task 2, you're going to have to start putting in your graphic information and some proofs, some evidence of what you're doing. I want you to look at these reports. Let's click on that. Now, when you pull it up, now this is on the school, and see it talks about the school, it compares it to the district, and then it compares it to the state. But then this is information that if you choose to use, you can copy and paste the information that you need directly from the teacher working conditions survey. And South Carolina, you can go to North Carolina and you can look at this to model what you do by when you these are valid and reliable instruments. So you can use these when you are establishing your surveys and establishing your checklist as well.
But looking at this first section, time, there may be 1 or 2 questions out of here that you might want to pull, but that really is not one of your 5 major
that's
categories.
why I wanted to show them that one one thing, Dr. Evans, but that is not where I want you to camp out. And I've got to come out of this without losing everything. How do I go back?
Well,
When we
can
send
you
out
not-
the,
you
when we
can
send
scroll
out
on down.
the survey to our teachers, is there a targeted percent of the population? I mean, I know we want to get as much as we
We
can.
try to get as much as you can, but if you can get 50% of them,
Okay.
then you're doing well. I'm going to have to take a chance, Dr. Revis. I'm going to have to come out of this. I don't know what. It won't let
Are you
me.
sure it's not on down through there, or is this just this one correlate? It
No,
looks
no, no,
like-
no.
Maybe you
I should have checked on
Right
that one.
click.
Do what now?
Try to
click?
right click and see if it gives you, if it comes up to go back. It doesn't allow you.
No. Go ahead and talk a minute, Dr. Revis. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come out of this. I'm going to come back. Well, that's the
See
same.
those tabs up top, Dr. Reffis, Dr. Stedman, up top, you see those tabs? It says APA, AAPTEL, and 22 NC survey.
I don't.
Yeah, they're up top. You could click right here on that little X. I don't know if anybody else sees them. What says 2020 NC ASQI survey? You can click that.
Yes,
X
it's
in
up
there.
at the top. You have a tab that's open for just this. If you close just this
Mhm.
tab, it should be okay.
Okay, let me see. Okay, I'm going to close this. Or I just minimize it, right?
No, to the left. Go to
Yeah,
the
you
left.
see, yeah, go to the left.
Go to the left where you have the plus and then an X
Mhm.
to your left. Like
Stay
no,
up, stay up,
the
stay
other
up where
way.
you, yeah.
Keep
Now,
going left.
Going to the left.
okay, and I'm going, but I don't see a plus and an.
It's
And
there.
You
Take it
must
out.
not be able to see your extra tabs.
Yeah,
I cannot see it, and I apologize because I'm not seeing it, and I shouldn't have gone into.
Maybe if you stop sharing your screen, you can see it.
Yeah, let me
that's
do
probably
that, and I may have to do a new share because it's important that you see that. Let me do that and go back because I want to show you.
And while he's getting that back
Well,
up,
it's still.
and finding where we want to go, I just want to say that I've had some students go and used to use the working condition surveys, but unfortunately, they didn't pick questions out of those 5 major categories that we talked about. Well, later on, as we worked through the tasks, they didn't have information that they needed to really complete the task. So that's on me because I learned from that I need to closely check your survey instrument. But as you're looking, if you're not going to use the Todd Whitaker's 5-question survey, then, and you're going to try to use either the Cognia or, something your district uses or the North Carolina teacher working condition surveys, you've got to ask questions that align or that get at information in those 5 areas that you're doing research in. Does that make sense? Thumbs up or down? Okay.
So you
All right.
mentioned Whitaker's top 5 question survey. That's what you just mentioned?
Right. There in your template and in the example that we just showed you, there is a 5-question survey.
Mhm.
Now, I want to be honest with you. We all know that 5-question survey is not really going to give you a lot of reliable results or valid results, but you can use just that 5-question survey. And it's a question out of each of those topics. So, and again, you're going to have to get permission from your principal too, as to what he will allow you to use. Right now, as crazy as things are, I would not approach my principal with a big, long survey to want to send out to everybody. I think your chances of being allowed to do that survey diminish when it gets long. And that's just because of time. We all know that.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yes, we can see
Okay,
you.
okay. Now I just had to go back out. Okay, this is where I want to put the reports. The one in the middle is the one that you need to focus on. Okay, so if I click on that and you scroll down, I want you to look. Now it talks about time, it talks about facilities and resources, community support and involvement, managing student conduct, teacher leadership. Look at there. This is one of the areas you need to camp out at. teacher leadership. Teachers are recognized as educational experts. Teachers are trusted to make sound professional decisions about instruction. Teachers are relied upon to make decisions about educational issues. Teachers are encouraged to participate in school leadership roles. All of this is teacher leadership and empowerment outside the classroom. So you could pull any of that information. When you are looking at your particular school, you can actually say that according to the most recent teacher working conditions survey that you've got results from 2020, this is what it looked like in my school. And you can actually show this when you get to that, when you get to task 2. Look at there, professional learning opportunities. This is another one. So professional development offerings are data driven, because you're looking at what does staff development look like in your school. Those say, are you a part of? Are you allowed to be a part of that? Local, you just go through and you've got to just pick and choose those things that are applicable to what you're looking for with setting up your survey. But when you click on that second, there's a lot of stuff that you can use in there. So just make sure that you study that, camp out that. But we've provided all those resources in there for you to be able to go to and to get a lot of help. That's why you've got a couple of weeks that you're going to have to dig and pull before you have to actually submit anything to us. We've given you the time to be able to effectively do a lot of this. Now you can work with your PLC, or you need to work with your PLC, but a lot of this you're going to have to just dig and do yourself and bring it to your PLC and share with them, and get suggestions from them based on that. But again, take advantage of the information that we've got there.
Dr. Stedman,
Yes.
if you have a colleague you're in the same school, could we work on the survey together since we're at the same school?
I would, you know what, that is smart, Tiffany. And what I would suggest that you do is that let one be responsible for the survey and one be responsible for getting you're going to have to both, you can get the same results. So both of you, so both of you need to present the same information, to them. So you're not asking them to. This is a case in point that where there will be some similarities in
Yes, very similar.
Your results and your interpretation and your narrative work you'll write it differently,
Right.
although you've got the same results.
Mhm.
Okay,
Thank
does
you.
that make
Yes,
sense?
that
And
makes
Tiffany,
sense. Thank you.
when you work in a situation like that, you share the responsibilities where one might take the lead with the survey, the other one take the lead with developing the instrument or whatever. Y'all just work together on that, and we know that they're going to probably be the same, but the results, how you write it up, will be differently.
Yes, it will. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Revis, I want to point out, I think because Thursday night, we're going to share a lot. We're going to go into task 2, task 3, and task 4 with them. And then next Tuesday, we're going to answer their questions about task 1, but we're going to delve into task 2 heavily for them next week. But what we need to remind you, if you go ahead and look at task 2, remember those 5 areas that you've got to do research on, the minimum of 50. When you go to task 2, you're going to see those same 5. We got just enough time, Dr. Revis. I will pull it up if I can.
But remember, while he's pulling that up, if you work ahead, that's fine. But make sure that we approve your survey instrument and checklist before you move forward with
Exactly.
administering
You
those.
you can't
in
do any of
task
that
two.
until we give you, Dr. Revis, I don't know what is in I think what it is, I've got too much open up and I haven't closed out. But I'm scared to do anything because I'm scared I'll lose them. So give me a chance to open this back up and
Sure.
just talk to them while I'm finding this. I want to just show them so that they can make the connection of where they're going with this.
So remember in task one, you are doing your research, and that's something you need to do. You don't have to involve your PLC for that. And you're identifying an observation checklist for walkthroughs and a survey. You really don't need your PLC for those two things either. Your person that your go-to person there is going to be your principal to get approval for that, and us. In task two is where you really start administering the surveys and doing the walkthroughs and reporting the results. And that's when you convene your PLC after you have collected your data.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we sure can.
Okay. Okay. Okay, here we are at task 2. And we're not going to go into it, but remember we said that you're going to do all the research and you're going to develop your instruments for approval in task 1. Task 2, everything that you've done in task 1, you're actually going to implement in task 2. But what I wanted to show you was this. Okay.
I think you're in prompt 2, Dr. Stedman, of task 2.
I am. I've gone down too far.
And in task 2 is what we call the gap analysis, guys.
Right. But all I'm going to point out is I want you to look at those 5, task 1, how it starts. Your heading is, remember what was the first heading in task 1? It was building efficacy and empowerment among staff, according to what the research says. Guess what? You're going to talk about building efficacy and empowerment among staff based on what it looks like in your school. This is going to be from your surveys, from your checklist. It's going to be from talking to your administration, talking to teachers, talking to your PLC, talking to you can have focus groups. But this is where the rubber is going to meet the road as it relates. Everything's going to be what it looks like in your school. And you'll see all 5 of those headings all over again. So it's you're researching it in task 1. You're actually going to put it to the test in task 2. And we'll talk about that some tomorrow, some on Thursday night, but we'll really delve into it on next Tuesday. We've given you a lot. You've got enough to get started with your research. Again, you should know what to do at this point. We're available if you have questions. Feel free to contact us. But all of you did well enough on the app, so I don't think that this is going to be. It's just a matter of delving into it. Do not procrastinate. Get started on this now. The next 2 weeks, we've built this in there, but we're counting on you to use your time wisely to get a lot done. Remember, I told you last week that I figured about week 12, week 13, maybe. Some of you are going to be ready to turn your AAPTEL in. I promise you, you're going to work ahead, because once you get started, you're going to connect it and you're going to see how it all goes together.
And I would say task 1 is just really writing intensive. You've got to do research and you've got to write about it. And I guess I can't let this session go without saying Don't forget, correct APA style guide. And we assume now that you're masters at that. Probably don't even need to say that.
Okay, and Dr. Revis, if they go under week 8, they will see today's agenda, and we've given some upcoming responsibilities. This is just reminders for you. Just remember that this Sunday at the latest, that your case study 1 work is due. That's all that is due to us this week. Then you don't have anything else that's officially due to us until task 1 of the AAPTEL is due for peer and instructor review no later than Sunday, March the 20th. Now, many of you will have submitted that to us way before that time, and I would encourage you to. But you know, when you get it done, you know, we can approve things and you can move on. And that tells you when your task 1 peer reviews start back before our class on Tuesday, March the 22nd. It tells you on that same sheet when the task 1 of the AAPTEL is due for a final grade on the 27th of March. And at the same time, task 2 will have to be submitted for our review. But you need to look at that because your Zoom team assignments are different. And we'll talk more about that next week. But your Zoom team assignments are going to be after you have completed task 1. And then you will talk about task 1, but the whole goal is for you to be able to collaborate with each other at that point so that you can move forward with the complete AAPTEL development. So, you know, you will be working and planning as a team and getting suggestions and ideas from each other based on where you are after you've done your research with task 1. At this point, though, your focus should be just getting this research and getting task 1 done, and that survey and that instrument to Dr. Revis and me for our approval. Jenna, yes.
Could we possibly work closely with our Zoom team members in creating our survey questions and have the same survey questions as a data to compare, even though we'll have different analysis?
I don't have a problem with that, Dr. Revis. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, a survey is a survey. The teacher working condition survey is the same across the state of North Carolina. So, you know, that I have no problem with that, Jenna.
Okay, thank you.
You are
And I
welcome.
know you're tired of hearing me say this. Make sure if you don't use Todd Whitaker's 5-question survey, and if you go to your teacher working conditions survey or whatever, that you are collecting, that you're using questions that are in those 5 categories.
Right.
And I know I've said it several times. That's just because I know I've had some people get caught up and really had to go back and do some focus groups because they had not collected data to be able to talk about those categories.
And could we can combine, like we use Todd Whitaker's 5 and then grab a couple of the work surveys that align to that, just to give us 2 to 3
Absolutely.
questions. Okay.
That's good. That's good, Sasha. Yes.
Describe that you've done that, okay, and where they came from. I mean, theoretically, Sasha, you could take some from Whitaker, you could take some from teacher working condition survey, you could take some from a survey that your district does, but you just need to talk about where all those came from and why you chose the questions you chose. Okay.
Okay. Okay, is everybody good to get started now? You know how to get started. Give me the thumbs up if you're good to go. Good to go. That's good. Just real proud of you. I was very, very pleased with the work with the AAPTEL. You've come so far. I mean, so far, and so proud of you. I know you're going to do well with this.
I know you will too. Just you know, manage your time wisely. I told you that about this time of the course, you'll feel like it's kind of settling down, but we give you time right now because this is a lot of research and a lot of writing for this task 1, but it builds your foundation for what you're going to do throughout this whole AAPTEL. Task 1 builds the foundation. So get a good foundation and you can do that.
Okay. Okay, we'll see you on Tuesday. Okay, bye, everybody.
Good night, everybody.